other states. But Trump's election wasn't the beginning of a story. It's the climax of one. And everybody that's involved in this resistance needs to understand that where we're at, like, we're in the denouement, y'all. This is not the beginning. This is not the intro. This is the end. And I have faith that it's going to shake out, in the form of a more perfect democracy.
All right. Well, that sounds like an excellent place to end. So thank you, Ivy. This has been really great. And I love hearing how much passion everyone in Texas has for Texas. Nobody seems to want to leave. They want to just make it better. So I think that's really, really great to hear.
That sounds about right. Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Thanks, Ivy.
All right. Bye.
The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. The prairie sky is wide and high, deep in the heart of Texas.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Kelly, and I am here with Julie Oliver, who is running for Congress from the 25th District in Texas. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Kelly.
I'm so glad you could join us. So, Julie, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and who you are and why you're running for Congress.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you again for having me. I grew up really poor. I like to tell people a little bit of my upbringing because it's shaped a lot of who I am and what I like to put forth in my life and where I like to focus my efforts. But I grew up really poor. My mother was a single mom. She was a school teacher who made about $700 a month. And I remember that because she used to have me help her with her budgets. I was really good at math, and she'd help me do the adding and subtracting. And she was, like I said, we were very, very poor. When I was a teenager, I had kind of what I call my little rebellious phase. And I ended up running away from home my senior year of high school. And I ended up getting pregnant. But because we were very, very poor, when I went back home, we had no insurance. So I was a Medicaid mom. And Medicaid allowed me to deliver a very, very healthy young baby girl who is now 27 years old and a PhD student at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth.
Fantastic.
Yes, I know. It's incredible. My hat's off to her. She's an incredible young lady. But because I got pregnant and was a runaway at home, I had to really get my life back on track. And my mother was a huge part of that. And even though we were poor financially, we were rich in love and support. And she told me she would do whatever she could to help me get through school and get through college. She knew I needed to get my college degree. And she remained true to her word till the day she passed away. So I did. I put myself through college, and getting through college, I actually was able to graduate at the top of my class with an accounting degree and zero debt. But the reason why I was able to graduate with zero debt is because there were government programs when I was going through college, government programs that are now under attack by this current Congress and our current administration. And again, I was able to get through college with zero debt, which is almost unheard of nowadays, unless you come from a family that is saved up for college. I decided my junior year of college that I wanted to go to law school. So that's what brought me to Austin 23 years ago. And I put myself through law school. I like to tell people, I think I'm the only person who was pregnant all 3 years of law school, because I ended up getting pregnant with my son the first year, having him the second year, getting pregnant with my daughter the third year, and having her right after graduation. And I sat for both the CPA and the bar exam pregnant, one with my son, one with my daughter. It was so funny. Yeah, I just needed a little more challenge. It wasn't hard enough. Yeah. So I say all that just to give a little bit of my background. But I wanted to mention, too, that my mother moved in with me because she was poor and she had just turned 65, had retired from the school system and was on Social Security. She got $300 a month. And obviously $300 a month is not enough to pay your bills and even just provide basics for yourself. And most of that $300 a month was eaten up by her Medicare premium. I took care of her until the day she passed away. She also took care of me, and it was a beautiful relationship, and I miss her every day. But what I like to mention to people is that because I have this very unique life experience, being a teen mom, being a Medicaid mom, dealing with an aging parent who is on Social Security and Medicare, and trying to advocate for her when she was struggling in her final years with a chronic illness. It really lit a fire in me. And I will say that when Congress attacked healthcare this past summer for the 70th time, most specifically, they were trying to repeal and supposedly replace the ACA. I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I have made a career in healthcare finance for the last 15 years. That's where I've specialized. And I know the numbers work to get everybody healthcare coverage, and we can pay far less than what we are paying right now. And to say it lit a fire in me is an understatement, because I spoke to my husband. I was like, honey, if you're not going to run, I have to run, because I have this life experience and this career experience that is sorely needed in our national dialogue. And I didn't know what else to do other than throw my name in the ring and run.
So obviously healthcare and it sounds like funding for college are very important to you. What are the other issues that you're really concerned with?
Well, I would say one of my high priorities, and it's something that I don't think people think a lot about because they don't know about it, but is the influence that dark money has had in our political system, meaning these anonymous multi-million-dollar donations that are being made to fund campaigns or influence elections. And it's what has allowed at least Texas, and I know several other states in the union, to have these crazy shaped districts. The district I'm in, District 25, I call it the jalapeno heart of Texas. And if you look at it in Wikipedia and you zoom out, they've shaded it the color green, and it looks like a jalapeno. It starts in Burleson, goes all the way to Wimberley. That's about 180 miles from top to bottom, about 140 miles east to west. And it's what allows these representatives to select their voters instead of the other way around. So I would like to eliminate dark money from our politics. Another issue that's a high priority for me is creating a Clean Dream Act. We in Texas are very much in this national debate about what do we do with children who have come to our states, made their lives here, made their livelihoods here, and are giving back to our communities. And I think it's unconscionable that Congress won't pass a Clean Dream Act. And it very much would affect Texas, and harmfully, it'd be a harmful effect on Texas if we don't pass a Clean Dream Act and we start deporting children who are now adults back to countries they don't know. They're as much American as you or me.
You talked about dark money and wanting to get dark money out of politics. How are you then doing your fundraising?
I am all individual donations. I have committed to taking zero money from corporate PACs. And every donation I have is from a human, because that's who ultimately I am accountable, is to people, not corporations. And it is the people of this district, my constituents, that I am held accountable to. And I've committed to having town hall meetings every time I'm back in the district. When I'm not in Washington, I'm back in Texas, and they are going to be all comers welcome. So regardless of what side of the political aisle anybody is sitting on, they are welcome to come and meet with me. And that is something our current incumbent won't do. He will not meet with constituents in this district.
This district, and I've looked at a map of Texas, it is a very strange shape. Can you talk a little bit about what sorts of communities are included in that district and what the different concerns might be for the constituents?
Absolutely. It is a very, like you said, very strange shape, but because of that shape, it's brought in a bunch of people from very different backgrounds, very different walks of life, and very different living circumstances. You have affluent West Austin included in this. You have parts of East Austin that are not affluent, and obviously a majority of this district is rural Texas. So when they carved up this district, they wanted to make it about 60% rural, 40% urban, and they were quite successful. And obviously the issues that are facing somebody who lives in central Austin or West Austin aren't quite the same as those facing the constituents that live in rural Texas. Rural Texas is unfortunately more impacted by cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and we're seeing that in the closures of our rural hospitals and community health centers. And they also have a host of other issues, things that we take for granted, like broadband. rural Texas doesn't have reliable internet. Some places in rural Texas and in this district don't have reliable sources of water. And our current congressman, again, has voted to reduce funding for Medicaid and Medicare, reduce funding for rural infrastructure, specifically with respect to water and wastewater. And he's stood on the side of repealing net neutrality, which is harmful to our rural constituents. So again, a lot of things that we take for granted in a more urban community, people in rural Texas don't have access to. And what I find extraordinarily shocking is when you have, let's say, a health event in rural Texas, the fact that you may have to drive an hour and a half to get to the closest hospital, or you may have to be airlifted an hour away to the closest hospital because you don't have a hospital or don't have a hospital that provides those services. And I'll give you some basics. A lot of these rural hospitals don't even offer obstetric services, meaning you can't deliver your baby at a hospital there. They certainly don't have neonatal intensive care units at these hospitals. And if you can imagine having a little 1-pound baby, premature baby, and having to put that on a helicopter, it is so harmful to put a 1-pound baby on a helicopter because of the vibrations from that helicopter. Now, although the helicopter can get to another hospital very quickly, it's not good for a little 1-pound baby. An ambulance, and again, anywhere from an hour and a half to a 2-hour drive in an ambulance is really the only safe way to transport a baby, and the outcomes may not be good. So these are very real issues facing these communities. And it's shocking to me that we don't have a congressman who cares.
Yeah, I was surprised to see we think of Austin as sort of the liberal hub within Texas.
Yes.
Surprised to see that it was a Republican leaning district at the moment. Is that because of the inclusion of the rural geography?
It is. It absolutely is. The way this was very purposefully drawn in the state legislature here in 2011. After the 2010 census came out, we picked up a few House seats. And the congressman who had been a very long-serving congressman, and he still is, Lloyd Doggett, our state legislature tried to draw him out of this district that he had represented well for decades. And so they split Austin into 5 districts. And Lloyd ended up with a teeny tiny sliver of this district. And 4 Republicans ended up with the rest of Austin. So it really diluted the liberal-leaning tendencies of Austin by diluting it with more rural Republican-leaning Texas.
We've been talking a lot on this podcast in general about gerrymandering, and it's the kind of thing people know about happening in places like Ohio and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but it's not something you think about as much in red states like Texas. So that's, I think, important for people to realize that it's happening there as well.
It absolutely is. It's alive and well in Texas. It's debatable whether the Supreme Court will rule on the Texas gerrymandering case before we have another census in 2020 with new lines redrawn in 2021. Personally, I don't think that Democrats or Republicans should be able to draw their own districts. It should be very nonpartisan or bipartisan so that we have fair representation in geographies and localities. It's problematic when anybody is in power and they're drawing lines that keep them in power. And for me, it's more important for a community to have fair representation than for a political party to stay in power. And I think that's either side, and that's my personal belief. But we have to get fair elections and fair representation, since that's what we live in, is a representative democracy. We have to get people elected who fairly represent the community.
Yeah, I agree with you. I live in a state, I live in Illinois, and I live in a state where, in fact, the Democrats have controlled the drawing of lines, which has been to the advantage of the Democrats. But I agree, even here, the lines are so wacky, and they make very little sense in terms of what communities are included together.
It's political tricksterism. Yeah. And it's been going on for a long time. That's why we need to elect women. Women are just, we are sensible. and we're reasonable. And it's time for women to be elected so that we can just return to some sort of, well, I don't even know if it'd be a return because women have never been the majority or even 50% of our elected officials. So it would be a new era for us, but a very exciting era.
Yeah, and another reason that I think it would be important for women to be in office, you've mentioned several times in your